kiddos. So we are actually almost done with the book, and I didn't realize, because if you look at it, you think, we have a lot left. But no, because we only have until here, and then the rest of it's just discussion questions. So we're actually pretty close. So I am going to start. I had not finished the chapter, so I'm going to keep going. At night, I searched my magic book for illustrations of Shar or anything written by him. But the book fell open to page, written in Erythian, written by Erida in her diary. And if you don't remember, Erida was her friend at finishing school. I read eagerly. She wrote, "The inn has never had such important guests before. Prince Charmant and his knights stayed here last night. Mother was so nervous, she backed into the trestle table while curtsying. It went over, and Aunt Annate's vase smashed into hundreds of pieces. Mother, father, and I, Olo, Ufminu, Itzi, and even Etmin, went down on our knees, picking up shards so the prince wouldn't have to step on something sharp. It was so crowded on the floor, I bumped into someone's shoulder. When I turned to apologize, I was face to face with the prince, who was crawling on his feet with the rest of us, trying to pick it up. He insisted on paying for the vase. He said it never would have happened if not for him. Then he apologized for knocking into me. I couldn't answer. No words would come out of my mouth. I could only nod and smile and hope. I didn't seem too much of a bumpkin. At dinner, when I brought his ale, I did manage to speak, perhaps because I truly had a question, not simply a wish to impress. I told him that I'd been at finishing school with Ella when she ran away, and I asked if she knew whether she was safe. When I said her name, one of the knights called out, "The ogre tamer. Whatever happened to her?" The prince was quiet for a long time after my question, that I worried that I even offended him. But when he spoke, he didn't seem angry. "You were her friend?" he asked. "You liked her?" I told him, Ella was the best friend I'd ever had. He paused again, and I feared he would say that she had died. But he finally answered that he believed her to be well and married to a rich gentleman. He added, "She is happy, I think. She is rich, so she is happy." Without thinking, I blurted out, "Ella doesn't care about riches." Then I realized I contradicted a prince. "How do you know?" he said. I answered, "At school, everyone hated me because I wasn't wealthy and because I spoke with an accent. She was the only one who was kind and told me she didn't care about those things." Perhaps she's changed," he said. "I don't think so, Your Highness. I contradicted him twice. Oh my God." That was the end of our conversation, and I shall remember it forever. I watched him all evening, before and after we talked. Before, he had talked and joked with his men. After, he spoke no more. Married? How could it be? I wish I could see her again. I wish I could see Erida again, I thought. I wish I could have seen Shar's face when she defended me, but no illustrations accompanied her journal. December 12th, the day of the first ball, dawned clear and mild. By noon, clouds had gathered and wind had become sharp and cold. My gown hung in Mandy's wardrobe. The glass slippers Shar and I had found were safely buried in the bottom of the carpet bag. Since they had been hidden under the petticoat, there was little likelihood that Shar would see or identify them. Hattie's preparations began after breakfast and continued endlessly. "It's not tight enough, Ella. Pull harder." "We'll do that." My fingers were striped red and white from tugging at her laces. If she could still breathe, I wasn't to blame. "Let me see." She curtsied at herself in the mirror and rose, panting and smiling. "I shall be delicate if you don't remember me, Prince." She cooed at her reflection. Then she spoke over her shoulder. "Am I not magnificent, Ella? Don't you wish that you could look as I do and go to the ball? Magnificent, ravishing, yes. Oh, I wish I could. Anything to make her leave my presence. Pearls would set my hair off to an advantage. Fetch them. There's a good girl. 2 hours later, after Mum Olga called her 3 times and threatened to leave without her, she declared herself perfect and departed. At last I was free to bathe and dress. Instead of the kitchen soap I usually used, I helped myself to Hattie's store of bath oils and fragrant soaps. Mandy produced a fleecy towel and a fine scrub brush. "Tonight, I'll be your lady-in-waiting," she said, pouring steam water into the tub. "When your servant is a fairy godmother, you're never scalded, and your water never gets cold. You become sparkling clean, but the water never gets dirty." I soaked away a year's worth of cinders and grime, and Mum Olga's orders, and Hattie's edicts, and Olive's demands. When I rose from the bath and stepped into the robe Mandy held for me, I was no longer a scullery maid, but an equal of anyone else at Char's ball. My gown was a spring green embroidered with leaves of darker green and plump yellow buds. Mandy had done her work well. In accordance with the latest fashion, my waist tapered to a narrow point, and my train trailed 2 feet behind me. In the glass, I saw Mandy curtsy to me. "You're lovely, lady." She seemed close to tears. I hugged her. She squeezed me tight, and I inhaled the sweet smell of freshly baked bread. I turned back to the glass and raised my mask, which covered most of my forehead and half of my cheeks, with small holes for my eyes. With half of my head hidden, my mouth appeared strange and unknown to even me. The transformation was thorough. With the mask, I was not Ella. I was simply a beautiful girl. Nor was I perfectly dressed. I had no jewels. My throat was unfashionably bare, but it would have to do. I didn't have to be the most elegant creature at the ball. I only had to see Char. When I ran down to our front door, I discovered that icy rain was falling into sheets. If I walked the quarter mile to the castle, I would be soaked. I could go to the ball without jewels, but not wet through and shivering. "Mandy, what can I do?" "Oh, sweet, you can stay home." I knew there would be 2 more balls, and that it probably wouldn't sleet tomorrow, but it might. And I had set my heart on going tonight, and I had even bathed, and it was so beautiful. Isn't there some magic or fairy umbrella, something that could keep me dry? No, love, not small magic. The weather was such a stupid thing to separate me from Char. Mandy hadn't made the rain, but she could have ended it. I wish she were a real fairy, one who wasn't afraid to do anything. I had a mad idea and acted on it without considering its wisdom. I said the word Lucinda had taught me. "Lucinda, come to my aid." If anyone would think keeping me dry wasn't big magic, that would be Lucinda. "Ella," Mandy protested. "Don't." The order came too late. Ha. Lucinda appeared between us. She looked old, but stood straighter than the last time I had seen her, and many of her wrinkles had disappeared. "Ah, sweet child, you need my help," she smiled, and the young Lucinda shone through. "So long as it's not too big, I shall do what I can," I explained. "Going to a ball like that? No, won't do." She touched my cheek, and it was hung so heavy with jewels that it took all my finishing school training to keep my head up. Mandy snorted. "Perhaps it was too much for small magic," Lucinda agreed. The weight vanished, replaced by a thin silver chain which hung from a white lily made of the same kind of glass of my slippers. I felt a slight pressure on my head and lifted off a tiara fashioned of garland of the same flower. "Oh, it's beautiful." Lucinda replaced it on my hair. "Now, you need to get a coach," which is a type of car usually, or like a horse and wagon type of thing. "And a horse, and a coachman, and a footman. People and animals, you've forgotten your lessons." "Oh, no, I haven't. I won't shape them from air. I'll form them out of real things. That should satisfy Mandy, dear. Mandy grunted, which I knew was not agreement, but Lucinda continued happily. Earlier this evening in Frel, I spied a giant cart filled with pumpkins. An orange coat will be splendid. A rumbling noise reached us. Outside, a mass darker than a storm took shape and grew larger and larger. And 7-foot-high pumpkin rolled towards us and came to rest in the street outside of the manor. I watched Lucinda. She muttered no incantations, waved no wand. For a moment, her gaze shifted, and she seemed to stare within, not out. Then she winced at me. Look, child. The pumpkin had been transformed into a gleaming coach with brass doors, handles, and windows with lacy curtains peaked. Mice will make plump horses, she said. 6 fat brown mice raced across the tiles of the hall. They vanished, and 6 horses appeared before the coach. A white rat became the coachman, and 6 lizards were transformed into footmen. They're wonderful, I said. Thank you. She beamed. Mandy glowered. Anything can happen, you idiot. What can happen? I'll make it safer. Ella, child, you'll have to leave the ball early. At midnight, your coach will become a pumpkin again, and the animals will regain their original shape until your next ball. The tiara and necklace will disappear. I would have only 3 hours with Char. They would have to be good enough. Ah, how glorious to be young and going to a ball. Lucinda vanished. Glorious, yes, to see Char. Nothing more. Goodbye, Mandy. Wait. She ran to the kitchen. I stood impatiently and gazed outside. As I watched the orange carpet unfurled itself and rolled from the coach door to outside. If I wait much longer, it would be wet and useless. Mandy returned with her umbrella, uncompromisingly black and with 2 bent spokes. Here, love, I hope that you won't be sorry. Sorry, I got distracted. Oh no. Here, love, I hope you won't be sorry. I won't hug you or mess over your dress. She kissed me. Now go on, be beautiful and enjoy your night. I stepped into the carpet and raised the umbrella. The coachman jumped down from his perch and opened the carriage door. Now, that's where I'm going to stop for this one. But let me say something. If this doesn't remind you directly of Cinderella, I don't know what else does. So I wonder, it is called Ella Enchanted, but there has to be, I'm going to look it up later. There has to be some correlation because, you guys, she has like pretty much a fairy godmother now who gave her a beautiful dress and shoes, and so I think it is. What do you guys think?